Welcome to another edition of Through My Lens. I'm your host, Karen Jackson, and the Through My Lens podcast is an opportunity for me to sit down, to talk to, and to learn from individuals who have not let their setbacks, circumstances, or challenges define who they are and what they can accomplish. And I am excited today to have Mrs. Karol Brown. She is an author, she's a workshop facilitator, and she's a self love, self care lifestyle coach. And so we are so excited to have her to be a part of our special series that we're kicking off called Strength for the Struggle. So, Miss Karol, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm always enjoy talking to you.
Great, great. Well, we have a lot to catch up on. Okay, so we'll jump right into it.
Okay.
Um, so I want to talk to you because since the last time we spoke, you had did a TED talk. So tell us a little bit about what that TED talk is about.
Okay. Tech talks are very special talks. You're supposed to give a topic that people can use the information. So I gave a talk, and I am someone who has been portraying Harriet Tubman for 25 years. And so I opened up with Harriet talking about feeling free for the first time in her life. Can you imagine? After growing up as a slave, to feel free for her first time. But then I connected her story with my own story of finding myself in a situation of domestic violence. And this was pretty much of a shock to me. It was near the end of my 48-year marriage to one man. And it wasn't always that type of marriage. And so in the last 6 years of our marriage, it was a situation where I found that I was in a domestic violence relationship. And so I shared my story briefly. It's a 10-minute talk, and it is available on YouTube for anyone like to see it. And my transformation out of that situation, once I made a decision, well, I got the help from the angels above. When I said I need help, they said get out. And I listened, and I got my family to support me, and I got out. And once I got out of that situation, I was able to regain my joy, found my joy, got back to my goals that I had set before then. That was to write the book about girls, teaching girls self-love, this particular book right here. So the Harriet Tubman Way, an inspirational guide to self-love, empowerment, and legendary leadership for girls. I couldn't write this book until I left that situation because it's all about teaching joy, appreciating yourself, where you are, finding your strengths and courage. I wasn't living that. And anyone living in a domestic violence situation or something like that are not living their full joy in life. They're not tapping into their self-love. Because when you're in self-love, you care enough for yourself not to stay in a situation where someone is harming you, even is it verbally or physically, spiritually. You're not in a good place. So I gave a rendition of Harriet, transforming out of that situation to being transform into like a butterfly. And so I try to do that, and that's sort of put in a way that people can understand the meaning of what transformation was for me.
Wow. That is an awesome story and testimony. And what I you talked about regaining your joy. Um you had to somewhere there it had to be some resilience that you said my life can't just stop here, right? So what advice would you give to someone else who may be struggling with um, an abusive situation, regardless of whether it's physical or verbal? what would be the thing that you would tell them as a way to stay resilient and to embrace that self-love that you were speaking about?
Well, first of all, people sometimes, I know in my case, I don't know why, but the victim seems to feel a little shame and they don't necessarily share it with other people. But if I say, if this was someone you loved, a friend, a relative that you found in that type of situation, you would
Mhm.
want to help them get out of it.
Right.
And so when it comes to ourselves, we got to realize we have to make the decision to change our lives. And so deep down inside, we have the love, the strength of God within us. And that is what we have to draw from, to know that we are worthy of living in joy, peace, harmony. And until you decide that you've had enough, then you're gonna, you just can't maintain your life in that situation. Sometimes horrible endings happen when
Mhm.
you don't
Mhm.
take your life in your own
That's
hands. Basically, is what it is. You take your life in your own hands. You make the decision. You reach out for help, because quite often we can't do it ourselves.
absolutely.
And help could be someone helping you get out of the house. It could be a phone call for a um, victim support line. Whatever you need to do, you find a way to get out. That's the
And
key.
so that is so true. And the safety is first, right?
Safety first. Yes.
Absolutely, at all costs. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk to me a little bit about where this love for the Harriet Tubman story and how you have um, kind of incorporated that into your own personal story and also a way to empower other young women and women in general.
Okay. Well, Harriet Tubman, we've been, all of us today have been learning about her since we were in grade school, but we generally just learn a little bit about her, about the Underground Railroad, and maybe a little bit more these days. But when in school, wasn't that much time spent on Harriet Tubman. So
Mhm.
I used to work at the VA hospital here in Seattle area, and I was on special committees like the Equal Opportunity Committee, representing the African American employees. And part of my duties was Black History Month. And
Okay.
one year, about 1998, something like that, I saw the movie with Cicely Tyson portraying Harriet Tubman, and that sparked my interest to research her. And I found out
Mhm.
so much more about her. I happened to be in Toastmasters International Club, Speaking Club, and studying storytelling. And then when I found out that Harriet was a storyteller, that she would travel around after she got free to uh,
Mhm.
abolitionist meetings. And that's where she raised her money to go back to rescue people. So I
Mhm.
created for Toastmasters a presentation where I portrayed Harriet Tubman, the elderly Harriet Tubman, and she lived to be 93. Most people don't realize
Mhm.
that. So I just wanted to share her life from her later years so that I could expand on all of her life and not just one little segment that was like 8 years, if that long, as her going back and forth on the Underground Railroad. And all the books I read about her told her story, but I wanted to grasp the person that she was. How did she do that? What was in her that allowed her, this little third
Mhm.
generation slave girl who had been mistreated by her owners and other people she was rented out to, but she still believed that she could be free. She believed
Mhm.
it so much that it came to her reality that she was one day able to be free. That's self love. But that self love also expands outward till she loved her family, and all the colored people back then were her family, everyone around. So when she went back for her family, but anybody else who wanted to go and be free. Now, years ago, they said she rescued um, 300 people in 19 trips. Reality is more like 70 people and 13 trips. But I asked people, how many times would you go back? How many
Talk
times would
about
you go
resilience.
back? Yeah, yeah, definitely. So Harriet Tubman, to me, represents someone who um, we all can learn from her. Things like these are chapters in my book: sense of humor, being a team player, knowing how to network. And the Underground Railroad was the ultimate network system, right?
Exactly.
Right. How to work, how to manage your money. And you think about manage your money. Harriet Tubman, she didn't have any money. Harriet Tubman was smart. Even when she was a slave, she found out as an adult, her owner rented her out. That started as a child, but when she was rented out to work for someone else, well, she put in so many hours and her owner would get paid. But if she worked overtime, she got the money. And so she
Mm.
was able to start making money and saving it up for her freedom. And once she was free, she did all kinds of work to save up her money to go back and help someone else into a new life by being free. So that she's quite a
Mm.
person to teach about. And I love sharing her stories.
Absolutely. That's just remarkable. And made me go back to the whole idea of what you talked about uh self-love and self-care, because I would think that Harriet would have had a real serious regimen of self-care to be in this underground situation and to still be able to keep coming back and keep rescuing people. Um, talk to us about that resiliency, and what would you say to our younger people regarding a situation and I'm sure Harriet may have felt, that her challenge was big, how she was going to do it. And oftentimes that's us right here today. We face challenges that we think are unsurmountable,
Yeah.
right? But it is possible if we believe and have some of the same belief system that Harriet had.
Right. I remind people that Harriet's life situation was seemed an impossible thing to get over. You know,
Hmm.
slave, no money, no education, no freedom. We come today with so much more, and our children today are so blessed. And but still, life can be challenging for all of us, and just have to remember that we are never alone. Karen, I've gotten really spiritual, and I realize that we have our guardian angels with us all the time. Harriet was very spiritual, and she was even able to. She had visions of future events. She was very able to hold on to her faith. She always knew that she was being guided and protected on her journeys, and
Hmm.
that was the rock that she held on to, was her faith that God was going to see her through every time, and that she went back knowing that. And if you have in your mind that you're going to be successful at something, and you don't let anything stop you, then you will reach that goal. And that was her whole attitude. She went back to save people. She didn't go back to get caught. She went back to save people and bring them to freedom. And she did that. And I say that she was a servant leader. That's the type of leadership style that she was. Someone who first was all about service, but because of her service, people followed her. So she was a leader. But as a servant leader, she was one that you would say, well, first of all, she was unstoppable. And she was one that people would look at and know that she as a servant leader, the people she served found a better life because of what she did and um, how she dedicated her life to it. And if you think about it, she famously says, "My train has never jumped the track. I never lost a single passenger." If you think about a leader with a 100% success rate, I don't know of anyone else I can name other than Harriet Tubman.
Wow. That is awesome. That is awesome. And that you kind of took my thunder a little bit. I was just going to ask you about the leadership qualities that you think defines a good leader, and you just kind of talked about them. You said being unstoppable, believing in something, right, and having the faith, and being resilient and focused, right, and having a plan and working strategically through that plan.
Yes.
I think that's all good advice. We all can continue. That's timeless
Right, but
information.
additionally to the leadership skills to highlight with Harriet, her communication skills. That's very important with leadership. And I remind people they couldn't just stand out working in the field chit chatting. No,
Mhm.
but they could sing and they could communicate through that songs. And that's a creative thing that we
Mhm.
forget about, how resilient and intelligent our people were even during this trying time of our history. And we still have that spirit
Mhm.
of the leader that has been part of who we are and always have been. And so her commitment to people, her willing to volunteer to do the job that needed to be done. In the Civil War, she was a scout, she was a nurse, she was a spy. She was the first woman in this country to lead a gun raid and was
Mhm.
successful. So she had so many things that we can learn from. One of my chapters in my first book, which is
Mhm.
the 30 Lessons in Love, Leadership, and Legacy from Harriet Tubman, is on the job training. So I look at all that she went through as a child and in her slavery time. When she got free, she could do just about any kind of job. She could find a job, cleaning, sewing, so many different things because she had that experience. And we want to encourage our young people to take the advantage of any opportunity to gain experience, volunteering work, or just doing your chores and being responsible for what has been given you to do, and do it in a attitude of gratitude. That's another important lesson that I teach through Harriet, is gratitude, that she was always grateful for all the people that helped her and all that she was able to do.
Oh, wow. So I wanted to ask you, what is the best or some of the greatest advice that you have ever received, whether it was about being self love, loving yourself, resiliency? What is that one piece of advice that you still continue to use today?
Well, I would say it would be just to have faith in yourself. Just know that you're different than everyone else, and that's the way you're supposed to be. We're all unique. We all came with gifts, and we just have to, when we get down, just remember that. One thing I really appreciate just recently that I've had this understanding, because, we hear a whole lot of stuff, and then as you get older, you can look back and connect the dots. That
Mhm.
everything in your life is for you. It may not feel good, it may not be comfortable at the time, but when you can look back and look at the lessons that came out of that situation, if you took the time to learn the lessons and take it all in, then you grow from that. And even though it was not, for instance, with my situation with my husband, I had to forgive him and I had to forgive myself. And that's part of the journey, to take what you learned from that time together and being able to forgive and move on with your life, and not let that hold you back, because forgiveness is the key that unlocks your heart, so that you're not dealing with the sadness, the sorrow, the hurt and the anger for the other person. It sticks in you. Karen, one thing I do is I'm an emotion code practitioner. I don't know if you're familiar with that. A lot of people haven't heard about that before. And
Okay.
I'll just give a brief information on that. Emotion code
Okay.
is a health modality.
Okay.
And is our bodies have trapped emotions from all our lives. Even some of them are inherited.
Mm-hmm.
Those trapped emotions stay in our body and they cause dis-ease. And so any of our problems that we're having spiritually, mentally, physically are probably caused by some trapped emotions that we hold in our body, and it keeps our body from doing its ultimate job to heal itself and be
Wow.
its best that it can be. And so as a practitioner, there's a way to help people release those trapped emotions, and their lives improve and their health improves.
Mhm. And I can believe that just in some of the work that I've done and working with um, those who may have some mental health challenges or are socially isolated. A lot of times, it really is some childhood traumas that have not been dealt with. And I've started to see even with our older adults, sometimes I remember hearing one of them say, "Well, you know, my mother used to just say, oh, toughen up, get over it, right?" And so now it's like, well, I've lived with this trauma, I've lived with this disease in my body, and I've just learned to cope with it, right? Instead of really being healed and being that free spot that you were talking about. It really does take courage of all of us to right to look at ourselves in the mirror and to address those hurting areas because they do come out in
Yeah.
different ways.
Right, right. And some of the emotions don't come out, and they come out in areas of the body like ache or pain.
Mhm.
Those are expressions of those trapped emotions as well. But the beauty of the emotion code is that it is not really taking you back to relive those situations. It's
Okay.
only it's connecting with your subconscious and asking, is this type, is there some emotions that are causing their headaches? And if so,
Mhm.
let's find them. And then I can do this remotely. I do this remotely most of the time. Is go
Okay.
through those emotions and release them with a magnet wiped over my head. It's really quite amazing. But if anyone's interested, is emotion code. Dr. Bradley Nelson is the person who found this system and made it work. And so, yeah, I'm a practitioner for that. So that's part of what I do in my coaching with on a one-on-one with women or children, men too. But my clientele is mostly older women and girls. So I'm trying to connect the grandmothers and their granddaughters and bringing them closer together through self-love, self-care, and just finding the, the ways that we are alike. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, it may be many, many years between us, but we older women went through that same period of life, and so we do have wisdom to share. And so I want to help them be able to connect with their granddaughters or girls that they want to connect with. And that's why I use my curriculum from my book to start the conversation, give them something to talk about, to open up the discussions.
Okay. Well, I know that you're going to give those grandmothers and daughters and granddaughters an opportunity to come together next month, October 12th, from 2 to 5 in your webinar. Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll definitely put the link to registering in the link of this video. But tell us a little bit about what can we expect on October 12th.
October 12th. Okay, it's 2 o'clock Eastern time, and that is 11 o'clock Pacific time. It's 3 hours and it's interactive. It will be on Zoom. And we are going to have some fun, Karen. I want people to come with the idea that I want to give some tools that the grandmothers can use to open up the discussion. We may have some fun games, some ways that we can see that grandma does know a little bit of wisdom, but grandma can learn from granddaughter too on some of the
Absolutely.
terminology and things that are going on in their lives. And so we will
Absolutely.
have some breakout sessions. We will hear some great presentations and just have some quality time together so that we can in, continue on that same path of self-love, self-care, and sharing our lives with each other, and sharing the love that we have for each other and helping our young people. It helps the young people, but it also helps the grandmothers too, in a way that when you're more, um, you have something to do. If you have something to live for, you have a purpose in life, you're active in a community, you are, we're going to talk about, since I'm a dietitian, we're going to talk about eating healthy and how lifestyle can help chronic health problems that the grandmother may have, but also break the chain of these family health problems that we tend to pass down because we pass down the same habits,
Hmm.
breaking that chain and getting new knowledge so that we can move that out of the pattern of life that we want to, our legacy. We don't want to leave the legacy of illness. We want to leave the legacy of positivity and joy and happiness and peace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was so well said.
Thank you.
So I want to, so we'll definitely put that information in so people can be aware of that webinar that's coming up again on October 12th from 2 to 5. But I want to wrap up and ask you a question that I try to ask most of my guests. Um, Based on what you know now, what would you tell your younger 12-year-old?
My 12-year-old self. Well, actually, a 12-year-old, that's about what, seventh grade? Yeah, about like that. Interesting enough, in the seventh grade, I had to do a interview for occupation, somebody, some type of occupation. And I went to interview a dietitian. And that's where my career was. So I would say to myself, you're on the right track. Um, know that you are also someone who can teach. And in this role as a dietitian, you're going to have opportunity to do a lot of things that you enjoy doing and working with people and enjoying people. But just remember to have fun. Always have joy in your life. And if your joy ever gets to be someone's trying to take your joy away, then back off from that person, because your joy is very important for you to be who you came to be in this world.
Well, that is awesome. And what better way to wrap that up? And I think that's
Can I add
a
one thing?
perfect. Sure,
One thing I
absolutely. Go right ahead.
forgot. So I do have a TV show,
Oh,
right? Yes,
okay.
yes, yes. Can't leave that out. On
No, you
Monday,
can't.
no, Monday nights from 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on Bold Brave TV, which is a YouTube channel, is Harriet Tubman Love in Actions. And it's a TV show where I share stories from the book, and I have speakers. And Karen is going to be with us in October, and we'll have guest speakers. We talk about Harriet, and we talk about the lady who was quoted on a particular chapter in the book, because each chapter is a quote by African American woman. And so then we get into the discussion, but then we meet wise women, and then we also have an opportunity to meet some mentors that are working with girls. And hopefully, sometimes we have some girls actually come on and show what they're learning through their mentorship and through going through the Harriet Tubman Way book.
Okay. Okay. Well, I am so excited. I am looking forward to being a part of your show. But we will definitely put the links to those in the video as well, so that they can begin to follow you, right? Because I think this your topic about, and I love the fact that you utilize someone who we all know, right? We
Yes.
all know the story of Harriet Tubman. We may not have known all the details that you've been able to teach us along the way, but we all need someone to look up to, right?
Yes.
Someone to say, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it too. And so I just want to say thank you for, your commitment to empowering women and young girls to love themselves, because we know when you love yourself, you're going to attract that same love back to you. So,
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
well,
Well, thank you,
thank you
Karen. I
so much
appreciate
for
the
being
time.
here.
Thank you
And we
very
look
much.
forward to the next time. It'll be real soon. So don't become a stranger.
Okay, definitely. We have to stay in touch. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being a part, and just keep doing what you're doing, and may God continue to bless the work of your hands.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you too.
God bless.